Okay, folks, what's up, Sky? So we're going to do something a little bit different, probably leading into maybe something I'm going to work on over the weekend. And I've actually got my controller here, so I can see what's going on because I am not really good at not really good at a lot of things, but I'm not really that's that much of a difference. Okay, I'm not really good at switching between these screens. I don't have a lot of experience, but I kind of came across something really cool, and I wanted to share it with you guys. And it has to do with something that I wasn't familiar. I wasn't really familiar with this, and I came across it last week. And part of it had to do with using this in a scenario. Okay, what's up, Kathy? And I wanted to use this in a scenario, and I was reading up about these, whatever you pronounce it, Neubaufahrzeug. Yeah, and they went to Norway, and they didn't use them in Poland, and they didn't use them in, I don't think they used them in Denmark, but they went to Norway, three of them, and then afterwards, supposedly there's some German sources that said that they went into Ukraine and they fought in the Battle of Dubno. And the Battle of Dubno, which is probably a lot of people don't know what it is, because I didn't know anything about the Battle of Dubno until like maybe a year ago. And I came across it, by accident. It was like, oh yeah, Battle of Dubno is the biggest tank battle ever, and I'm like, whoa, I thought that was cursed. It's like, no, Battle of Dubno supposedly has like 20,000 Russian tanks or something like that, and half of them were broke down, and none of them like survived. Basically, they were all like captured or broke down on the way to the battlefield or what have you. And I'm like, I've never heard of this battle before. And I think Dubno is the Russian name. The German one is a different type of name like that. But it happened like days in the invasion of Barbarossa, like not right at the beginning, like within a week. And it's part of the. Oh, that's nice. That's a nice message. But we don't have that kind of a channel. Anyhow, the so I was doing the battle this about the Battle of Dubno, and this possibly being used in conflict, and I came across one of the things that's famous about that big battle is it was one of the places where T-35 tanks were used for the first time, and really only time. There was one that was used here and one used in another place. When I was looking at T-35s, I have a lot of T-35 tanks, like six, I think, or something like that. I got them for like $1 each. I've painted one, and I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. And yeah, so I came across, and let me see if I can do this because I took a photograph of it, and so I can find the link, and it's actually on Tanks Encyclopedia. This is actually a website that has a lot of like generic stuff on it. I don't think it's not that it's not any good. It just has a lot of like generic type things on it. And let's get this back to where it was. And okay, so let's see if I can do this correctly. And we're going to do display capture. This is why I need to film this. Okay, we need to let's look at the display capture. I have no idea what the hell is going to come up. Okay, so I'm going to give it a little bit, and then we're going to go to the internets here. Okay, and then we're going to add a window, and let's see. And the AFV one, yeah, I get them mixed. I get them mixed up. You know, I get all those pages mixed up. All right, now has it changed? I guess it has not changed that yet. So this is why I wanted to do this. I am handicapped when it comes to doing this kind of stuff. We want to do display capture, hide and unhide. Okay, it's visual now. Okay, and open the source properties, capture method. Let's try this. Done. How about automatic? Okay, let's see if that did it. Give it a little bit. It was like a 20-second delay. But I was looking at the T35, right? And I came across a book that's called Fallen Giants, written by somebody. It's all about the T35s, like really in descriptive detail. And that guy that wrote the book, yeah, I don't know why it's not switching over to this. I've done this before. I have not done it with the. Let's see. Maybe if I close. Okay, maybe that'll do it. And let's go to the other page. Okay, let me give it a second here to catch up. It's funny, like I don't know if my wording is at the same time that the pic. I'm not a technic. I paint miracles. I don't do this stuff. All right. Now, hopefully, it's better resolution than I'm seeing on my phone. Okay, and let me see if I can adjust this so we can get the whole picture in here. Let me see if I can, let me go back to this screen. Bear with me, Ben. Hopefully you don't fall asleep on me. I think you'll find this useful. It's pretty small due to it being vertical video. Yeah, I kind of have to do that or nobody's going to see this. All right. Well, hopefully I can show what needs to be shown. So we're going to go to, if I do a search here for Battle of Verba, which is a small action within that whole Dubno thing. Okay? It's a Soviet counterattack at Verba. Verba, that's what it's called. Okay, and it's the online tank museum. No, we don't want to buy anything right now, and we're not interested in a video. Thank you. All this advertising. No, we don't care about a trip MVP. I'm already famous enough. Thank you. All right, I think we got basically in the center of the screen here. All right, so this is, whoa! This is the action here, and we got to be careful because there's a crooked spider on there. And the first thing I notice is here's a T-35 that's knocked out. And it almost looks like it's got camouflage scheme. You know, it almost looks like there's like a camouflage scheme spray painted or something on here. You're going to see pictures on this page I've never seen before in my life, ever. And a lot of this is from this guy who wrote the book, Francis Pullum. And I guess we're going to be clicking on these things all the time. Francis Pullum wrote this book called Fallen Giants. And he also wrote this article. And if we go down here, Francis Pullum collection. Okay, there's the crooked spider. And I'm just going to kind of hit the highlights. I've kind of read this and know that there's some really juicy stuff in there that I'm interested in. That is the amount of detail that's in here. There's got to be this kind of detail in other things. Now, part of it has to do with because the T-35s were such a odd monstrosity. They just attracted all kinds of people photographing them and so forth. And I actually have the border just happens to be like almost perfectly on the left-hand side there, justified. Okay, good. There's a little bit of white space to the left there, but you guys can't see it. So anyways, the huge losses, talking about the invasion of Barbarossa, lead to an effective removal of certain older and out-of-production tanks from the Red Army. Because they had 20,500 tanks, according to sources, in the invasion. Including certain older and out-of-production models of tanks from the Red Army, including the gargantuan T-35A. I didn't know it was an A. I just always called it a T-35. Almost all were lost by the end of 41, most from drivetrain problems. However, some T-35s did fight back, counterattacking the Germans at Verba in northwest Ukraine. But in what seems to be a recurring situation for the Soviet armored forces during those desperate days, the assault consisted solely of tanks, with no infantry, artillery, or aircraft support. So why am I interested in this? You're going to see. Okay, T-35A in the fight. Of the 48 T-35As deployed in the 8th Mechanized Corps, all were lost on the 6th of July, just 15 days after the fighting started. Fortunately, the documentation from the 67th and 68th Tank Regiments survived and provided valuable insight into the combat performance of the T-35A. Of the 48 T-35As that were deployed by the 8th Mechanized Corps, all tanks were lost in the withdrawal from their garrisons east of Lvov to Zhytomyr. Some 35As were driven to Zhytomyr from Dubno, originally deployed between Lvov and Przemysl. Being chased all the way by the German front line. Most T-35As were lost on this march rather than by combat due to mechanical issues. Run away! The T-35As were slowly being picked off either through breakdowns or the occasional enemy engagement. While on the march from their bases to east of Lvov, a few tanks turned around and fought back, inflicting some casualties onto the Germans. All right. A little bit of background information there. So why am I reading this? There's an actual action here with photos and all kinds of stuff. Okay? This is what caught my attention, this paragraph. All right? Counterattack. There was one real documented engagement with which the T-35A was used, destroyed in combat, and later photographed. On the 24th of June, 1941, 2 days after the invasion of the USSR, the German army found a gap between the Soviet 5th and 6th armies. It was exploited to create a corridor led by the 48th Motorized Corps, which include the 11th Panzer Division and the 16th Panzer Division. The Red Army was unaware that the German Army Panzergruppe 1 had found this gap, okay, which incidentally is the same Panzergruppe that supposedly these Neubaufahrzeugs were in, 3 of them, okay? Just a footnote there. Was unaware that the German army had found a gap and moved to meet the Germans on their flanks. The Soviet 8th, 9th, 15th, and 19th Mechanized Corps were ordered to meet the Germans and engage them. The bulk of the fighting that involved the T-35A was between Dubno, which was recaptured on the 28th of June by the 8th Mechanized Corps, and Brody, which was never liberated in the counterattack. So they went and counterattacked. Both of them had been taken by the Germans. They were able to liberate Dubno, but didn't liberate Brody. It was between these two towns that a handful of T-35s engaged the enemy. According to records of the men of the 16th Panzer Division and the records of the losses of the 34th Tank Division, 4 T-35As, 2 BT-7s, two T-26s and a KV-1 attacked the German flank at Verba. This was where elements of the 16th Panzer Division were laid up. This village had previously been captured on June 27th. I have all of those tanks. Just saying, okay? The attack was conducted... Oh, it gets better. The attack was conducted without infantry support. It did not have any main goals other than driving the enemy out of Verba. There was no Soviet artillery support or air support. The Germans, on the other hand, had access to air support. It is reported that the Soviets achieved cutting the communications between the 16th Panzer Division and the 6th Army. However, all of the attacking Soviet tanks were lost in engagement. Well, it's only it's only 9 vehicles, All right. I wish there was this kind of stuff for like every engagement. This is incredible. Look at this. We've got a topographical map. I don't know if it's period specific. I would imagine that it is. The village of Verba is located in western Ukraine, situated between the towns of Dubno and Brody. To the northeast was the village of Pichia, and to the south lay Ranivka. These 3 villages were on a major road that ran northeast from Lvov to the city of Rivne. Okay, so here's Verba here at the bottom of the map. And here's the main road. And you can see that over on this side, some kind of swamp, looks like swampy terrain, probably really soft ground in this area. And this all raises into mountains. Looks like the stuff over here is probably higher than here. It's almost like a valley. At least that's what it looks like. Okay. Map of Verba, or Werba, and Dubno from 1936. Before 1939, the area belonged to Poland, hence the Polish names. One can see the main road and railway line from Lvov to Kiev. Hey, look, it's not spelled the weird way. Kiev. I don't like the Germanic spellings of things, like, Krakow and stuff like that. I'd rather, if you're going to call a Russian city, give me the Russian spelling of it, or the Russian equivalent spelling, I guess. The village of Verba sat on a corner of the road as it changed direction from east to northeast, with the road not actually going through Verba, rather than passing to the north of the village. Like you can see that here. This highway or whatever, which is probably just dirt. Compacted dirt. Verba also sits on the north bank of the Ivka River, which had a rather large floodplain. Yep, there you go. Roughly a kilometer of either side of the river. So this is this floodplain here. It's probably really soft. Verba is positioned on the hill on the north side of this river basin. Okay, so here's the topographical map. It's kind of overlooking this floodplain. Looks like almost like a bend in a river. Although here's a little tributary here also. The village of Verba was typical of Ukraine, with an Orthodox church of perhaps no more than 20 houses at that time of the war. The Lvov-Kiev railway passes through did I just say Kiev? Kiev. The Lvov-Kiev railway passes through Verba, which has a small station. The main road to the north of Verba was a dirt road, told you, which had a smaller dirt support road. Between these roads was a small drainage ditch that varied in height. The road was straight as it approached Verba. However, it curved. Can I use my finger? I sure can use my finger. Okay, that's a lot easier to scroll. Small dirt support road. Between these roads was a small drainage just varied in height. The road was straight as it approached Verba. However, it curved to the north as it passed Verba. Where the road curved, the road went down the side of the Ivka floodplain banks. As it curved, the road dropped by about 10 meters. That's a big drop. With a steep bank on the river side of the road and a small hill on the north side of the road. Okay, so here it looks like here's the actual town of Verba. This is probably the railroad tracks. And this is probably the road with the secondary road, which are both dirt. And it looks like it's Hill 215, comma 1. That's an annoying thing about, that's a really annoying thing about the metric system, I forgot, is when they put, instead of using a point, they use a comma. Oh well. 1931 map of Verba, as it was known then, Werba. The junction, okay, so Verba is the Russian spelling, Werba would be the Polish one. The junction at the center left of the map is the described curve in the road. Okay, so right here in this zone right here. That's the junction. Is there a scale here? No, but say this is about 1 kilometer on either side from the river here to the floodplain. Then you can kind of guesstimate about how far that is. On the curve in the road were a small junction to enter Verba from the east, and posts were placed every meter to indicate the traffic, the drop on the side of the road. Hold on, I got to make a shitload of road signs. After this curve north, the road flattens with a small drop to the south where the river floodplain was, and a small hill to the north. The road was straight from there to Pichia. All right, now it gets really interesting, okay? The village of Verba was once Polish territory, and in September 1939 was captured from Poland and given to Ukraine, to whom the Lvov Oblast now belongs. On September 19, 1939, Polish cavalry units attacked a Soviet force of BA-10 armored cars at Verba, losing 50 men in this attack. Well, there's a scenario within a scenario. I wasn't even looking for a Polish attack. BA-10 armored cars. What the hell are those equipped with? The 6s? The BA-6s are the same as the BA-10s, right? Except the BA-10s have the conical turret. It's basically has a more modern turret than the 6. Between the wars, Verba was another quiet village until the Germans attacked the USSR on the 22nd of June, 1941. The village of Verba was captured by German forces on the 27th of June. It's not known exactly how the road was captured. However, photographic evidence from Verba shows that a Soviet truck, likely a ZIS-5, was lost on the road, and a Panzer II turret has been found in a ditch between the two roads on the northern side. From the 26th of June 1941, the Soviet counterattack against Panzergruppe 1 began. The huge battle is often called the Battle of Brody or the Bloody Triangle. Some historians have suggested that it was this battle that should be called the biggest tank battle in history, not just Kursk. Okay. So I believe this part of the river, this part of the map is in this area right here. Southwest of Dubno, on the way to Brody. Here's Tarnopol, which ended up being famous late in the war in 44 as one of those bridgehead places. Everybody doing okay? All right. A map of the German assault on Ukraine. One can see that the 48th motorized assault between Dubno and Brody. Some notes on the map before the German occupation of the area. The city of Lviv was called Lwow. Under the Soviet occupation, Lwow became Lvov, which is what I know it as. Then the German name for the city was Lemberg. Oh, Jesus. Just stick with the Russian names. Finally, after the fall of the USSR, Lvov was renamed Lviv and is now current Ukrainian territory. The village of Verba has seen some more action on the June 29, 1941, during a night attack, which, by the way, I read somewhere one time that the Germans did not like to attack at night. I didn't know that, you know. I don't know if that was always the case, but I was reading something that probably if they probably wouldn't mind attacking at night if there's Yabos flying in the daytime, but assuming they have air support, they want no point in attacking at night. So, the village of Verba seems some action 29th during a night attack. The Soviet infantry had successfully engaged and captured some Panzer III tanks from the 16th Panzer Division. So it's not like they were just sitting around getting hosed. Like, they actually did something and captured some German tanks. Some speculation is that perhaps a Panzer III seen at Verba might actually have been previously involved in fighting during the night before the main Soviet counterattack. The battle for Brody lasted for 4 days, from June 26th to the 30th of June 1941, and involved 585 German tanks and 3,046 Soviet tanks. Therefore, a total of 3,631 tanks were involved in this titanic battle. After the Battle of Brody, which included the Battle of Verba, 408 German and every single Soviet tank was destroyed. That's pretty damn significant. The counterattack almost crippled Army Group South, however, left no enemy for this battered force to face, as everything in their way had been used and destroyed. So yeah, the Germans took out like 3,000 Soviet tanks. Like, man, that's impressive. Yeah, but they knocked out like 585 out of... They had 585 and knocked out 408. So what are they left with, 180 tanks? Something like that? Like, now probably some of them were broken down, but that's a lot of losses for the Germans. After the Battle of Brody, which included the Battle of Verba, the counterattack almost crippled. The Battle of Verba was perhaps the last engagement of the Soviet counterattack. After the previous 3 days of battle, Verba had elements of the 16th Panzer Division and the 48th Motorized Division positioned in and around the village. The Soviets were positioned at Pichia and were poised to make a last-ditch attempt to break out west. Interesting, they wanted to break out towards the west. The assaulting force consisted of 4 T-35As, and it gives you the chassis numbers of them. 2 BT-7 tanks, 2 T-26 tanks, and a single KV-1. Now, the chassis numbers on the tanks is important. You'll find out. By the 30th of June, the fourth day of the Soviet attempted counterattack, both Soviet and German units were exhausted from constant attack and constant counterattack. However, the Germans were certainly faring better. Well, yeah, they didn't lose 3,000 tanks. Even though the odds were still numerically against them. On the night of June 29th, a German reconnaissance flight picked up over 100 Soviet tanks between Dubno and Pichia. Some of the tanks were noted to be heavy multi-turreted tanks. The bulk of this force moved east to clear German bridgeheads at Zaslaw, southeast of Verba. However, a small group of vehicles drove southwest to attack the Germans at Verba. These vehicles advanced southwest down the 2 roads towards the village of Verba. Currently, it is hypothesized from the photographic evidence that on the left hand, look at this detail, that on the left hand main road, so this is on the riverside, right, was T-35 0200, T-35 220-25, and the 2 T-26 tanks, and the KV-1. It is theorized that the other two T-34s, T-35s, and the 2 BT-7s were on the right-hand support road. So they're advancing southwest. You got 2 T-35s, 2 T-26s, and a KV-1 on the south side of the road, and 2 T-35s and 2 BT-7s on the north side of the road. Now, all of those vehicles have very different movement rates. Okay, the BT-7s are faster than anything, assuming they don't throw a track or break down. Of course, in this time period, all these would be likely to break down. Probably the KV-1 is probably the most reliable of all of those vehicles, and the T-35 is probably the least reliable. But regardless, so here it tells you where they theorize what's on what side of the tracks. Here's where it gets crazy. Soviet side. It actually gives you a picture of what they think this vehicle looks like. T-35A-0200 was manufactured in, look at this detail. This is insane. Was manufactured in 1938 and was equipped with an anti-aircraft gun and a P-40 rotating mount. The tank had no clothesline antenna, meaning it didn't have the little support antenna, which you're going to see one coming up here. And notable features include amplified machine gun turret faces. I don't know what the heck that means, but amplified machine gun, okay. And the late type interior exhaust. I think they mean the exterior. I don't know. All of the T-35s this battle were from the 68th Tank Regiment. The regiment was ordered to paint two short white lines on the turret to denote this regiment. And all T-35s this battle were equipped with this mark. So this is what one of the T-35s looks like in this battle. Okay, this one is on the left-hand side of the road, right? So near the river, which is the other one that was there. No, which is this. 220-25. Okay, so this is the next one. Now it doesn't show a picture of it, but it actually describes it, and it might show a picture at the end because there's pictures of all kinds of stuff here. I'm telling you, this is like amazing amount of detail. So I found this article. I'm like, I gotta paint my T-35s up. I got to paint them. And I'm going to try to paint them like they are for this battle because, like, why not? T-35A-220-25. This is the other one that's hanging out with this tank that you see pictured here, okay? It was manufactured in 1936 and had early features like single turret escape hatch. I'm not sure where that would be on it. However, due to the combat damage, the least is known about this tank's features. I guess it got messed up really badly. Only recently has evidence of the turret come to light. The chassis displays signs of heavy modification. The front idler wheels of the tank were replaced with stamped wheels without the usual holes of the cast spider type wheels. The driver's hatch was replaced with a BT type driver's hatch. Again, I don't know what that means. This hatch is known as a BT type due to the resemblance to the BT-7 conical turreted tank's escape hatches. The exhaust was also the interior type exhaust. Okay, now the other two tanks that are on the north side of the road. Originating from the first, so this is T-35A-148-39. Originating from the first production of T-35s, T-35A-148-39 was an early type tank that had been updated during the pre-war years. As it was from the first production batch, the clothesline antenna only had 6 arms to attach it to the turret. This had been totally removed pre-war and only the 6 square feet remained. The tank has been modernized with an internal exhaust system. Okay, so you've got that handlebar around it, but you just have the base of it. You actually don't have the spokes of it, so to speak. Okay, that's good to know. All right, that's on the north side, okay, of the road. The last T-35 of Verba, 988-16, was manufactured in 1938 and displayed a mixture of early and late features. The exhaust was the early exterior type, and the driver's vision hatch was also an early version. This tank also had the clothesline antenna intact. So, what do we have? We have 4 T-34s, 4 T-35s. Sorry, I'm used to saying T-34s. There's only a few more T-34s made than T-35s. We have 4 of them. One of them has that markings with the 2 dashes. Okay? The other one we don't know a whole lot about because it was damaged, but it doesn't have any antenna. The ones on the north side, one of them has the bases for the antenna and one of them has the full antenna. Got it. All right? KV-1. A single KV-1 was present, likely a part of the 34th Tank Division, probably the 67th Tank Regiment. However, this is not known for sure. It's likely a part of this division as the vehicle was painted with white air identification triangles, which is common for the 8th Mechanized Corps, and specifically the 34th Tank Division. The KV in question was manufactured between April and May 1941 due to the mechanical features of this tank, which include a bolted rear turret ball mount and the placement of the turret handrail between the turret periscopes rather than behind the rearmost turret side periscope. Okay. BT7s. Two BTs. The first thing I want to know is, okay, are they the BT7s with a model 1939 turret, or they have the earlier T35 turret? We'll get to that. It does get addressed. The two BT-7 tanks were present at the battle. Each machine was equipped with a cylindrical turret, and both machines were equipped with a K-20 45mm gun rather than the Model 34 45mm gun. I don't know what the difference is between them. I suspect that the Model 34 is probably earlier. The exterior distinguishing feature of the K-20 was the welded construction of the mantlet. There you go. Whereas the Model 34's mantlet was pressed into shape, giving it a rounded appearance. At least one BT-7 was painted with white air identification triangles, like the KV, on the turret side, placed over a serial number 434. The second BT was too badly burned to make out the turret markings. However, it likely had a similar scheme. Okay? And the BT-7s were on the north side. So they're the ones that are hanging out with the T-35s with the antennas. Well, one that has the antenna and the other one that just has the base plates. T-26, one, but possibly two T-26s were deployed at Verba. Both tanks found were commonly called the Model 1940 standard of T-26, although this is incorrect as the machine was introduced in 1939. So basically what I would call the fast turret. The second, they used to be called them S's. I think they used to be called T-26S's. One of the manufacturers calls those type of T-26s, T-26S's. Both tanks were also painted with white air recognition identification triangles. However, at least one T-26 had this repainted green and had a simple divisional marking was painted onto the turret side. This marking has been identified as that of the 67th Tank Regiment, which also fielded T-35A tanks. However, these were not present at Verba, nor did any T-35 get repainted with the 67th Tank Regiment's divisional markings. Okay. German side. Not much is known about the German side of the Battle of Verba. What is known that at least two Panzer III tanks were present from the 16th Panzer Division, and men of the 48th Motorized Division were present. An 88mm flak gun was deployed in a defensive position at the east of Verba, and support vehicles, likely also from the 16th Panzer Division, were present. One Panzer III was a G variant with a short 50. See, I disagree with the 50mm gun being called short, okay? And here's the reason why. Okay, the 50mm gun that they call the short is an L42. That means it's 42 calibers long, which also means it is 42 times as long as 50mm. Okay, so when you look at a gun and it says, a 50L60, which is the longer 50mm gun, that is a gun that is the barrel is 60 times long. 60 times 50mm long. So why would a 50L42 be considered a short gun when the gun on the Sherman is a 40 caliber gun? So the standard gun on the Sherman, the 75mm gun Sherman, is a 75L40. So I just call it the standard 50mm gun, not short. Anyhow, I digress. One Panzer III was an off-G variant with a short 50mm gun and exterior brackets for the extra jerry can stowage, whereas the other machine was a Panzer IIIJ. It must have been a brand new 3J because the 3Js were just getting on the scene about that time. I don't think they had very many of them during the invasion of Barbarossa. And of course, during that time, that would have been the first batch of 3Js, which all had the same gun as the G. They basically just have more armor than the G. That's it. 10 or 20 millimeters more armor than the G. Which was also equipped with a short 50mm gun and extra jerry can storage. I just said that. I didn't even read ahead, like I knew that. Okay? These Panzer IIIs were photographed far less than the T-35s. However, a single turret digit has been found on the 3G, the number being 2XX, so second company. Second company of the 16th Panzer Division. All right. I gotta take a leak. I'm gonna be right back. Okay, I'm gonna be right back. This is super freaking interesting. I hope you guys are interested in it. I'll be back in a moment. Okay, sorry about that, but I didn't put on a diaper before I went to started my show. All right. So, for those of you guys that are wondering where I'm going with this, I have all of those tanks, and I just have to paint 3 more T-35s, which I have, which have already been primed, just so you know. So there's a good chance I'll probably be working on those very soon. Okay? German-wise, I actually have, for Russia, 3 Panzer III, 3 Panzer III Gs already done, and a J. That is the short barrel version, the shorter barrel version, the 42. So, things are falling into place here, okay? The battle, left side group, okay? So these are the guys that are on the side closest to the river, right? This is the 2 T-35s that don't have the antennas. Or never had the antennas, because one of them literally just has the mounts for one of them, but they're on the north side. Left side group. It should be noted that both columns of tanks attacked at the same time and worked somewhat together, even though they don't have radios. None of those Russian tanks would have radios. Okay? The divide between the two columns, this is interesting. The divide between the two columns was less than 3 meters. What the hell? What? The 2 columns of tanks attacked at the same time and worked somewhat together. The divide between the 2 columns was less than 3 meters. Dude, they're on top of each other. And the 2 columns were only separated by a drainage ditch between the 2 roads. The left-hand group consisted of 2 T-35As and 2 T-26s, assuming there were 2, because earlier it said there might only be 1, and the KV-1 heavy tank. On June 30th, while attacking the 16th Panzer Division, these vehicles were driving southwest down the Verba road on the left-hand road. This placed the drainage ditch between the roads on the right of the vehicles. Okay. It's thought that T-35A 0200, that was the one that has little markings on it, okay, was in the front of the line of tanks on the left road, spearheading this column. The tank took heavy fire from the front and sides. The village of Verba was to the south off the road and was occupied by the Germans. A railway line crossed the field to the south of the Verba. 0200 appears to have been an early casualty. Well, it's like the first one leading that column, right? Likely due to track damage or even the death of the driver. The tank crashed into the ditch between the 2 roads. The front right idler wheel sunk into the soft ground and 0200 was firmly stuck. The tank likely fought on in this position. Well, hopefully you had some elevation on these freaking guns or you're not going to do anything. Well, it looks like there's nice elevation on this 76 here. Okay, the tank likely fought on this position as the rear turret was facing the Germans. The barrel of this 45mm gun was actually hit and put out of action. This is like literally a land battleship. Like you've got this gun looks like it was put out of action. I mean, it's just insane. Now here you see actually one of the T-26s. And you can see that this is the more modern T-26 turret. This would have been the tank that has the stripes, the one that's actually pictured here at the beginning. This guy right here. That's that tank. Okay. Can we see the red star on the side? No. Well, this is after it got captured by the Germans, so let's just say it died there. Okay. Moments after the guns fell silent, 0200 lays in the ditch between the two main roads. Only minutes passed before the T-26 would be moved into the ditch between the two roads. And this is the source is that particular vehicle. Yeah, see here's the T-26 here, and there's the T-26 again. The main turret's P-40 AA mount was equipped with his 7.62mm DT-29 machine gun and was likely engaging German infantry. No bodies of the crew have been found in this photographic evidence. However, it is almost certainly that there were casualties. Okay, here we got this German vehicle behind the T-26. Looks to be like a Horch. Kind of hard to tell if it's a Horch or a Steyr or something like that, but it's definitely one of those heavy, I'd call it a heavy car. And here's the identification symbol on the T-26. Okay? Perhaps the first, July 1st or 2nd, 0209 and the T-26 are now nothing more than photographic opportunities for German soldiers. A T-26-40 belonging to the 34th Tank Division was lost next to 02. I think this is a misprint. I think they mean to put 0200-0. The T-26 model 1940, belonging to the 34th Tank Division, was lost next to 0200-0. This must be the symbol for that division. Is just the single horizontal line in white. It likely reversed into the wreck of 0200-0. Judging by the photographic evidence, the tank was originally lost on the road. However, it was swiftly pushed into a drainage ditch that 0200-0 had fallen into. Probably get it out of the way. It's a T-26 is a pretty light tank. Shouldn't be difficult to push that out of the way. The T-26 displays no obvious damage other than a single hit to the front left fender. And there it is right here on the front, right above the U and Pullum. Okay. It's likely the tank reversed into the 0200 after the destruction of 14839. 14839 was destroyed by air attack and blew up in a spectacular fashion. Therefore, it is not difficult to speculate that the crew of T-26 did not want to share the same fate. Stuka meat. 14839, is that one of the, which T-34 is that one? Which T-35 is it? Okay, it's the other one on the south part of the hill that we don't have a lot of information on it. Oh no, it's one of the ones. It's the one that has the. It's the one with the 6 feet. So the one with the 6 feet got air attacked and got blown to Kingdom Come. And I bet there's a picture of it somewhere. Okay. The T-26 lost with T-35A, T-35A-0200. Notice the minor damage that includes a small penetration to the front fender and the missing gun shield. Is there a missing gun shield? I guess there's maybe some part that goes in front of this right here. 220-25 was likely behind 0200-0, but in front of the lighter tanks of that day. The tank made it past the wreck of 0200 and was likely responsible for the few German tank casualties of that day. The Verba road gradually increased in gradient and then curved to the right. The road crossed this north to south. This photograph was taken on June 30th, 1941 by a man of the 16th Panzer Division. Other photographs from his collection indicate that the man was present in the Battle of Verba. Here, 220-25 after suffering a direct bomb hit. It was here that T-35 220-25 was bombed by a Ju-87 dive bomber, Stuka. The tank was torn in half by the impact and subsequent bomb detonation. The main turret was blown from the hull by the explosion and landed in the main road, where it was very quickly removed after the battle. The rear turret stayed in place. However, the 45mm gun turret was blown sky high to land in front of the tank. The rear pedestal remained intact, but the front portion was obliterated. The hull was cut in two behind the front suspension bogie on the right-hand side of the tank. And here it is. You know, even these heavy, well, these aren't really heavy. They are heavy tanks, but they're not heavily armored. A KV is definitely heavily armored. I mean, a KV has 3 times more armor, and I'm not exaggerating. Has 3 times more armor than a T-35. But still, the armor on the top is not very much. I don't know what the armor on top of a KV, but I'd be surprised if it's more than 20 millimeters. And that's any tank, you know. Other tanks that have like 30 and 40 millimeter armor probably have like 10 on the top. This is the one that blew up, 220-25 once again. In the background, smoke can be seen around 148-39. This photograph was also from the 16th Panzer Division. The wreck was left in place until 1942 when it was moved off the road when the front portion completely fell off. The KV-1, also from the 34th Tank Division of the 8th Mechanized Corps, was knocked out east of 0200. It seemed that this vehicle was retreating. Yeah, I mean, it's farther away from the village. As it faced eastward. It was retreating as it faced eastward, with the tank's rear facing the Germans. The turret was turned around, probably trying to engage the enemy. Maybe the front machine gun jammed. And they had because remember, the KVs of that time have a ball machine gun on the rear of the turret. The KV displays multiple penetrations and ricochets to turret sides and rear, with the most noticeable. I mean, you basically can't damage the KV with anything the Germans have other than the Stuka and the 88. I don't know where the 88 was in that village, but the 88 could hurt one of these guys, and so can the Stuka. You know, Panzer IIIs, you're not going to do anything to this thing. You'd have to, what did we learn in our battle? You have to drive at full speed and ram into it. Oh, never mind. The turret was, okay. So the Germans were coming from this direction over here, from where this tree was. So this is a shot facing towards the German border. Okay. The KV displays multiple penetrations and ricochets to the turret's sides and rear, with the most noticeable damage being the dislodging of the transmission, discernible by the shifting of the drivetrain to the right, which removed the drive wheel's hubcap. The earliest photographs show KV-1 still on the roadside, but it appears that within the hour of battle ending, the KV-1 and the T-26 were pushed to the roadside into the ditch between the two roads. This KV-1 was also lost at Verba. 0200 can be seen off to the right. Let me see. So that's the one that's... Oh, okay. No, I'm not sure I know where that is. I don't actually see that. Unless it's way off in the distance. I wouldn't have even known there was a tank back there. The last vehicle in the group, another T-26 model 1940, made it the furthest east of all the tanks, finally being lost near T-35A 988-16 from the right side group. However, not much is known about this tank, as the Germans preferred to photograph the T-35s. Yeah, well, they're more exciting. We want to take a picture of the big tanks. Okay, so this is the right side group. Now you can see immediately at the two BT-7s, here's one of the smaller turrets here of the T-35. And this one looks like this got blown sky high. I mean, there's not much left. I think the main gun turret is over here. Here's the two BT-7s, and you can tell they have the earlier turret. Because what ended up happening with the BT-7s is they went into production, and they didn't have enough of the more modern turrets, so they put the same T-26 style original turrets on them. Or the same turrets that were like on the BT-5s. This turret really had no intention of being on the BT-7s. They didn't have enough BT-7 turrets. So the BT-7s are kind of a mixed bag. Some of them have this kind of turret, which is the earlier one, common to the BT-5, and some of them have the conical one. Speculation has placed two T-35s and two BT-7s on the right-hand group road. On the 30th of June, this group advanced southwest down the Verba road in the right-hand lane, with the drainage ditch between the roads on the left side of the vehicles. The T-35A, okay, so here's the drainage ditch. Okay. The T-35A 148-39 was likely first in the column of tanks on the right-hand road. This tank drove past the point where 0200 was lost. Okay, so it drove past the first one that was knocked out. To the tank's left was a drainage ditch in which 0200 had fallen, and on the right was a steep hillside, with a wooded area and a building on top of this hill. Past this was a flat piece of land level with a road that 148-39 was driving on. So what happened? 148-39 dates from the first batches of T-35s. It was also one of the more heavily damaged tanks. I'd say so, looking at that picture. The two BT-7s can be seen in this photograph, although the rear tank number 434 has been moved forward from its original resting place. So here's your 434 in this fancy-ass writing on the turret. Although it is thought that when the tank reached 0200, the Soviets were attacked by Ju-87 dive bombers. The tank turned to the right, and it nearly completely exited the road. However, the dive bombers could not miss such an open target. 148-39 blew up in a spectacular explosion. The entire upper structure of the tank was open like a can, with the main turret pedestal and all the sub-turrets being blown off the tank. Yeah, here you go. It almost looks like one of those Marine Amtraks, right? Here's the 76mm gun turret. And this looks like one of the sub-turrets, of which there's two. And little machine gun turrets are nowhere to be found. Are they on the other picture? Yeah, there's one right here. There's one right here. The other one might be this one over here. That might be the other machine gun turret. And this is the other one. One of the 45mm gun turrets is still there. The other one's here, and there's a 76mm. Hey! Tank forensics! The main turret 148-39, along with the other debris, one can clearly see the 3-foot plates where the antenna used to be attached to. Okay, these little squares here. This is a clear indicator that the machine is a 148 chassis number. The main turret landed on the road that 149-39 was advancing up. The forward 45mm turret landed on the hill to the right of the rear flattened area. Well, that's not much of a hill, but gentle rise, maybe? The rear 45mm gun turret landed back on to the destroyed hull. Oh, so it came up and landed back on it. Wow. That's a fancy trick. The forward interior of that same tank, the machine gun turret ring is on the left. The 45 millimeter gun turret positions on the right. One can see 45 millimeter ammunition stowage in the front wall. I also suspect, and this is just a suspicion, that in this tank, all the 45 millimeter ammo was AP. And all of the 76 millimeter ammo was HE. I would bet money that's the case. Because it doesn't make sense to have AP and HE for the 45 and AP and HE for the 76. But Soviets do things sometimes that don't make sense. And the Germans do things that sometimes don't make sense either, as well. The forward interior of 148-39, the machine gun turret ring is on the left and the 45 millimeter gun turret position on the right. One can see 45 millimeter ammunition storage in the front wall. I can't see it quite, but yeah, I guess this is where this turret fell off and came back down. And it came back down pretty close. Okay, now you can really see where this road is. You can see where there's the ditch. So it looks like one group was advancing up this road here. The other one was advancing up this other road. And the one on this right-hand road got farther. Rear interior of 148-39. Notice the rear gun removal access door for the 45 millimeter gun in the turret. Some of the bombs aimed at 148-39 missed, creating deep craters to the east of the wreck. Okay, we're going west, so east of the wreck. So here's one of the holes right here. No crew survived the incident. Between 0200, which is the first T-35, and 148-39, which is this one, 2 BT-7s tanks were lost. The westernmost tank had burned out, which is this one, whereas the second vehicle, which is also 434, seems to lack any damage. It's possible that the first BT-7 was destroyed by enemy aircraft. However, no apparent damage other than the burned surface can be found. No penetrations or bomb damage. A view of the Verba road. T-35A-200 would be behind the camera. T-35A-148-39 sits on the roadside. One can see T-35-220-25 up the road. As for the second BT-7, it's possible that it either suffered a mechanical breakdown or the crew panicked when the German planes attacked or when they took out the two T-35As and abandoned the vehicle. You know, the one thing that I've read about World War II is that people didn't want to be in tanks because even though you're more protected, you're drawing fire from everything. Like everything, you can't hide or keep a low profile when you're in a tank. So yeah, if you're being attacked by everybody, you might be better off bailing out of the tank. If you're worried about your life, you're bailing out of the tank and becoming one with the dirt. The last Soviet vehicle in the battle, T-35A 988-16. This is the one with the antenna. The only one that has the actual where you could put the clothesline. Was likely situated in the right lane. However, this is the most uncertain position as the tank could have crossed from one side of the road to the other. 988-16 successfully passed the wrecks of 0200, 148-39, which is the one that exploded, and 220/25 before cresting the hill at Verba, with the village to the south of the tank. I guess it got pretty far. 988-16 passed the village itself and drove another 50 meters west. The tank took a hail of fire to the front of the hull and turrets. Upon reaching this long straight road west of the battle, the tank met a well-hidden Flak 37 88mm anti-aircraft gun. which is made short change of that. 988-16 made this, okay. Well, I guess a lot of this stuff is being repeated. This photograph was taken shortly after the battle. A dead crewman can be seen in the ditch, partially covered by the watermark. The damage that 988 took was great. And here you can see that it has a very vague red star on here. I don't know that it has any other markings, but it's got a very vague red star. The thin frontal armor of the T-35 was little match for the heavy shell of the flak gun, and a hit likely to the front machine gun turret was enough to stop the monster in his tracks. The face of the front machine gun turret was blown completely off, and many other items were shot off or damaged. The photographer has kindly annotated the image to reveal the location of the 88mm flak. So it's driving down this road, and there's an 88 here, and if you can see that, that's really freaking close range. That's like the face of battle range. The KT-28 main gun was shot out of its cradle. The turret cheek MG mount was blown off its ball, which is right here. It's got kind of like a little ball machine gun coaxial that T-35s do. The front 45mm gun turret periscope was shot away, and the clothesline antenna was damaged, and many other items were removed. Apart from a single T-26, this was the furthest point for the Soviet counterattack at Verba. A close inspection of the nose of 988-16 reveals a large number of hits this tank took before being stopped. One headlight is missing. There are many penetrations to the hull and turrets. The KT-28 has taken hits. Bomb mounted is laying on the floor. Laying on the floor in front of, oh, here it is right here, of 988-16. However, new photographic evidence suggests this was placed there by German soldiers as it partially lay on the front of the 45mm turret. It's unknown whether this T-26 was lost in the fighting on June 30th, 1941. This tank was close to 988-16, with the row of trees concealing the Flak 88 being in this frame. Reasons for this tank not being in the battle and the fact that the tank is facing east, implying it had to turn around. However, another clue is that this T-26 was indeed involved in the fighting is that the turret markings that match the T-26 lost next to 0200, which is the one that has a little dash. I guess this has a dash as well. Unfortunately, all the tanks at Verba, this humble T-26 is by far the rarest to find photographically, as the Germans prefer to photograph the T-35s that were less than 30 meters east of this machine. German casualties. The Russians did not have a monopoly on casualties. At least 2 German Panzer IIIs were knocked out of action, along with about 3 German trucks. The Panzer IIIJ on the left-hand side of the road and likely took hits to the tank's left side as this was facing the Soviet columns. This tank's road wheels seemed to have dug into the mud of the roadside. So that's this vehicle right here. And this is the road they were coming down, so it took fire from this direction. A view of the Verba Road on the photographic record of a man from the 16th Panzer Division. Smoke still billows from 220/25. I can't see that in the picture. And 148-39. Is that this picture? Yeah, I guess maybe it's in that picture. Panzer IIIJ, you see it on the left. Second tank was knocked out behind the camera. Okay. That's a close-up of that tank. Same Panzer III as the previous photograph. While no damage can be seen from the side, the exposed left side likely took a battering from the hail of fire from up to 4 T-35s. Missing a little turret box on it. I guarantee it had it. Panzer 3J after tracks have been removed. Fortunately, photographs of these tanks are rare. German soldiers prefer to photograph the T-35s. A rare view of the rear of the Panzer 3J. The damage to 3J is clear, however, compared to the T-35 minor. Panzer 3G was lost 25 meters in front of 220-25. That's really close. 145 millimeter gun penetration can be found on the tank's left side. Likely not the shot that disabled the tank, as the front right drive wheel was totally removed from the tank, also taking off the track. The right rear idler wheel was also removed from the from the tank. And here it gets better. Here's the location of all the vehicles. Look at that. Where are you going to find this kind of detail? I don't know any place that has this kind of detail. Now you're talking about on the Eastern Front that, you know, they didn't have time for that kind of stuff. So they're coming down this road. Let's see what the general map of the battle. One can see the large scattering of vehicles. Well, they're all along the road. I wonder why. Maybe the conditions were really soft. I see some stuff here on this, over here on the other side of the railroad tracks, probably really soft. From left to right, green represents the KV-1. Okay, well the KV-1 was facing the wrong way. The KV-1 is facing the wrong way, so it got to some point and then decided, heck with this, we're not going to be the only thing, and, you know, got hosed. Next, T-35A, 0200. That's the very first one we saw, and the T-26 is parked next to it. Got it. The next two BT-7 tanks are yellow, and the T-35A 14839 is in red. That's this one right here. This is the one that suffered that catastrophic explosion. The next three tanks are the two Panzer IIIs in gray and a T-35 220-25 in red. The Panzer IIIJ is north of 220-25 and the Panzer IIIG is east of... So this is the... Somehow we're missing something here. The Panzer III is north of this one, okay. So this is the J, and this is east of, it should be west. It should be saying it's west. That's a misprint on there. And the Panzer IIIG is west of 220, because this is 220-25. Next unmarked on the map was a small collection of destroyed trucks. So somewhere in here. The last red square is T-35 9-88-16, which is the one with a wire antenna. The green X represents the flak. And finally, a T-26 orange. So T-26 won the race. Post-battle, the village of Verba was scattered with vehicles throughout the duration of the war, with Germans slowly dismantled the vehicles left and moved them to the roadside. After the war, the Soviets dismantled what was left, thereby leaving no physical survivors. During the post-war era, the main road from Bodie to Dubno was redirected north of Verba and was renamed E40 Highway. Verba itself has been greatly built upon, with much of the new village being extended north of the old major road. A gas station has now additionally been built roughly where the KV-1 was lost. The wartime main road is still in use today, and thanks to Google Earth, you can now virtually visit the battlefield. Well, that might be interesting to check out. Sources. Most of the information about the battle action was inferred by post-combat photographs and the information given in documented losses of the T-35s. However, one actual combat photograph exists, whereas all the other photographs known to experts are post-combat photographs and have been brought to light through painstaking photographic research. In January 2018, fresh evidence was found from a soldier of the 16th Panzer Division in the form of his photo album that detailed elements of the battle. The photographs are presented above and are now part of the extensive Francis Pullum collection. More information is required to fully trace this epic battle, however, only time will reveal more information. And this tells you basically where the information gets gotten from. Isn't this cool as shit? This is really cool as shit. And this, of course, is gotten here at the source material here. Tanks-encyclopedia.com /Soviet-counterattack- at Verba. Really, 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 really cool stuff. Really, really cool stuff. Now, let's see if I can manage to botch this up or not. So I should be able to go to this screen. And go to hide this, and then we're going to open the webcam. Okay, so let's see if we can adjust this a little bit. There we go. Don't want that orange shit on there. All right. So let's take a look at what I have. I have one T-35 that's complete. Right? I think I have one. I think I've only completed one. As soon as I find it. Holy crap, it's only big as hell. I got T-28s, that's the problem. Here we go, here's a big nasty. Only 3 viewers, everybody else fell asleep. Now, I have in my projects that have started and not finished, my T-35s are in here. I'm pretty sure. Yep. We have 3 other ones. One of them with the antenna. Another one without the antenna. It's a bit of a tight fit with the primer. So we're going to have to open that up with an X-Acto knife. And last one, also without the antenna. You're still here on satellite comms. Wasn't that a cool article? That's freaking amazing. It's amazing stuff. Amazing, amazing stuff. That's the kind of stuff that gets me going. Okay? Plus, I don't have 2 T-26s built with a conical turret, but I do have them. It's those damn skiffs. But I do have two T26s. I actually have three. Three of that type. A KV1 is not one was not bolted down. Oh look. It's one that's even named after you. Ben. There's a KV1. And two BT7s, including one of them with the air recognition symbol. So this is the forces of the battle. This is the forces of the battle from the Soviets. Now, all of these vehicles, none of them have black lining. That doesn't matter. By the way, how do you feel about stands? You like them or you don't like them? I kind of do, and I kind of do, and I'm indifferent, honestly. So look, I have exactly one. I have exactly one of these that has the antenna on it. And I guess I don't have one that has little supports. I'd have to glue the antennas and then scrape those things off. I bet I have an extra T-35 turret. I bet I have an extra T-35 turret somewhere. It may not be here, but I bet I got it in the garage. How big of a table will be needed? I don't know. Probably 8 feet. I could probably play on that same battle that I did the BT-7s on, because you saw how close they got. You know, I'd probably like forego the 88, right? Like you got to make it past this point, and if you do, the 88's going to rape you. You got to like make it like 2 tanks have to get past the board or something. I mean, I saw that and I'm like, holy crap, this is amazing. This is absolutely amazing. This is the other T-26 that I have. But it's not the modern ones. I got to build those 2 skiff ones. Well, look, I can use these. It's not that big of a deal. They got the pictures wrong. So what I'm probably going to do is, all of these vehicles you saw were painted before I ever had an airbrush. Okay, they're all hand painted. Why is Gemini listening to me? Yeah, the stand conversation Tuesday for the Sun City segment are often due to flimsiness of the vehicle wheels. You end up using them for all the vehicles for uniformity. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're going to have to... I actually prefer the stands. I don't need to move them. You know, they're not going to Mitch's house. You know. So... And the other thing I have is, how many T-28s do I have? I got 4 T-28s. And I believe it's the same turret. I believe it's the same turret on them. Now these are actually 1/87 scale. I didn't mention that. So these large vehicles would be even larger. But the reality is that these T-28s, even though they're 1/87th, are about the same size as T-34s are. They're about the same size as the T-34s at 1/76 scale. So they don't look too far out of place. These are made by... God, what's the name of the manufacturer? Man, I don't remember. But I think what we're going to do is, I'm going to cut out for an eye. I want to do that. We'll just do a different kind of a show. Apparently at least one person enjoyed it, and that's good. One of my regulars. I'm going to paint tomorrow morning, and we're going to work on these land battleships. we're going to work on these 3 land battleships. So we'll be seeing over on the other side in the morning. But that was a really cool article. I wish there was just more stuff like that. And there's other articles that are kind of on that amount of detail. I don't know that they all have that kind of detail in them, but there are other things that I've encountered. And I think it's only an issue if you use maps with clearly different terrain, and the camo will usually be wrong to stand out well. Yeah, you don't want to use this in the desert, but it should work fine on the terrain that I've been using it on. But anyhow, that's it for tonight. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. There's a lot of really cool stuff out there. That kind of stuff just didn't exist 20 years ago when I was doing World War II. It just wasn't there, which is one of the reasons that I kind of left. But now it's one of the reasons why I ain't going back. I'm doing World War II stuff for sure. There's just too much juicy stuff out there. All right, folks, you should have some 24 carpeted paint for DBA, so I might have you on in the background for a little while longer. Okay.